There is Anne here on the Life LDC couch. I've popped in here to do a quick update on Stash Happy 2020. So I invite you to grab your knitting, cup of tea, and sit down and let's talk about Stash Happy 2020, how I'm progressing, and then maybe you can tell me down below how you are progressing with Stash Happy 2020. So get comfortable and join me. I am thrilled with my Stash Happy adventure. I showed you already my Love Note sweater. That was knit with very recent stash that was purchased in late 2019. But I did jump into my huge stash. Renee, my buddy who was here with me on the Love Note video, she helped me to have a look at my stash. And while I was in there, I found, and I did mention to you already, my Earth Stripe wrap. And this is an old project. I focused, I settled in, and I finished my Earth Stripe wrap. I love the way, look at that fringe. I love the way that fringe flows. I was tempted not to do the fringe, but this wrap, per the instructions, is 5 feet long. And that's long, but compared to recent wraps I've knit, it wasn't terribly long. So the fringe adds another foot at least. And I just love this. So we were talking, I was talking about the fact that Kaif is the man of color and how he put these colors together. They are simply gorgeous. Kaif always has been a man of fantastic colors, right? And so doing this is, while it's easy, it's just striped. You're constantly changing out shades, which means you have a ton of ends on the outside. Well, I, on the advice of a knit buddy of mine who also has knit this, I did exactly what she did. I just took my end, my side, rolled it down about 3 stitches, tucked all my ends in, and sewed it down. Now, she did not do any knots, but I decided I went through and made knots. Every so many ends I would tie together in a knot, but just left the long pieces of yarn inside the edge. Doesn't add any bulk. It's still nice and drapey. I absolutely love this. And I'm so happy that after all these years, I finally took it out of my stash and I finished it. So this was stashed back from, I can't remember oh no, this stash was not that old. It's an old pattern, but this is, I bought from Needle Emporium a few years ago because they had put it together. Getting confused with all this stash, old stash, new stash, mid stash. Now, I mentioned to you at the time that another friend of mine bought the other kit that was available of this, and that she had decided that her knitting mohair wasn't suitable for her. It was getting in her eyes and everything was really bothering her. So I ended up purchasing that. And with it came, when she gave it to me, we traded, there was about this much done, minus the fringe. I'll hold the fringe down on a needle. And I thought, when I was doing this, I thought, what do I do with that? Can't rip it apart because it's all little bits and pieces of yarn. So I decided to make a hat. I just took it and I did some rows of, I think 3 rows of knit 2 together, knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 1, decreases, then another row, then another. Anyway, I just love it. Look at that pom-pom. I made my first pom-pom. This was my first pom-pom, but I decided it was too pink with the rest of the stripes. So I went back and made a more green and blue pom-pom. I didn't use all the shades of the wrap. The end, the rib, the brim, there is no brim. It just sort of rolls up naturally. I quite like it. And I think with the wrap, talk about a snuggly look, don't you think? So this is really Stash Happy Finished Project 1.5, because this was mostly knit. I did do a few rows. I think I did from about there up. So anyway, I did add to this and I did make the pom-pom. I've never made a pom-pom with mohair before. I never even thought about making a pom-pom with mohair before. I got this idea from Kay Jones on the Bakery Bears, and I'll have to go back and see why and what she did, why she made a mohair pom-pom. But she talked about how gorgeous it was, and I thought, what a brilliant pom-pom. It's all fuzzy. I don't know what it's going to look like if it ever gets wet. It might not be a robust pom-pom, but for a hat that's made out of Kid Silk Haze, held double, that I wouldn't really want to go out and get wet in either, it's a great pom-pom. So this is my first finished project that was resurrected from stash and actually got finished in 2020, and it's thrilling. Project number 2. So project number 2 was deep stash, totally deep stash. It involves a yarn that has been discontinued. Let me just see. I looked it up on ply. Merino 12 ply. Is that Merino chunky? 600 yards, 55 meters. No, this is 91 yards. Isn't Ravelry something? What did we do before Ravelry? 122 yards. 99 yards. What is this? Shepherd Aran Merino Superwash. 91. Oh, okay. This is Cynthia Helene Merino, and it turns out that it's superwash. It says it was discontinued. Doesn't say when. This is was I think probably a yarn that was predating the conception or the establishment of Ravelry. So this doesn't actually give us any details, but it is from old deep stash in my stash. I don't know how long I've had this. I've had it long enough that I actually did a sweater. This is probably back from the 80s when sweaters were really big, and it's ribbed. I found this in stash. It was completely finished, except the sleeves hadn't been sewn in. And I thought, what possessed me way back then to stop a project that I'd worked on? Gorgeous yarn. Didn't realize it was superwash. That's interesting. But a gorgeous yarn, gorgeous plain design. Love the rolled neck. Now, back in the day, this would have been very oversized on me. It still is actually oversized on me. I'm not sure. I might block it out so that there's no real rib to the rib, if you know what I mean. Now, I did discover one thing. after washing. Look at my sleeves. They are really, really long sleeves. I don't mind them though. Maybe the next time I wash it, I'll pull the sleeves and try and make them shorter. But this way, when I'm out for a doggy walk, I can pull them down over my gloves, or I can stylishly roll them up, or if it's cold and chilly, I can just pull them down and knit away with my sleeves down. So I don't mind the fact that the sleeves are actually long, but I am totally amazed at this sweater. And I will take some stand-up pictures and show you, because it's long enough to do the little French tuck, and I just love it. So this is like totally deep stash, and that makes me very happy to have taken yet something else out of my stash that's been hibernating for absolutely years. So what's next, you say? I've been having really good luck finding things that are close to being finished or just need a little bit of love and attention to finish. But not everything that you find in your stash can be reinvented, rejuvenated. And I think I found one of those projects here. And it's in this bag. I even did a swatch. Does anybody recognize the design? This is Kate Davies. Hold on while I look up the design. I almost missed it. I was looking through all of Kate's designs here, and here it is. It's Boreal or Boreal. It was published in 2011. So 9 years ago. I know I cast on immediately when the pattern was released. I thought it was a great pattern. I'll just show you what the original looks like. Can you see that? So it's two colors, the bottom darker, the top lighter, and there was that little mirror image of the pattern. Well, I decided that I was going to do that pattern all over the whole body, which meant the whole thing is stranded in worsted weight wool. And I used Jamieson's of Shetland ivory, and I can't remember the name of this one. It's a beautiful, gorgeous, soft shade. I really like these two shades. Now, am I going to finish this? No. What am I going to do with it? Well, since I haven't cut anything and it is a sweater, I am going to frog this whole thing. I'm going to put it in hanks. I'm going to wash it. I'm going to bring it back to its natural state, and I will decide. I have got a pattern in mind, but it depends on how much yarn I actually have from this project, and I have to look in my stash to see if I have any more, because there's only this and a couple of skeins. I know I've got more ivory, but I don't know if it's the right dye line. So I need to assess how much of this I have in stash. So this is going to be repurposed. Stay tuned and see what I come up with in the future. So the thing that started off this whole stash happy thing was sort of ignited by the fact that I took all my sock yarns and sent them off and had sock tubes made out of them. I thought, and it made me so happy to know that I was actually going to be doing something with my sock yarns. And so I started doing socks from sock tubes. And I've done a couple now, and I'm slowly working into my own method of doing them. And I just wanted to share with you a couple of tips that I have sort of adapted. So this is a finished sock, and I've measured, not counting the contrasting heel and toe, I've measured down in increments of 25. So 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, 132 rows. So if you know that the body of your sock is 132 rows, you can take your sock tube, if this is your sock tube, you can start marking off 130 whatever, or how many rows you need on your sock tube with markers. And then the next thing I do is I pick up the top row of the tube with waste yarn. There's waste yarn from the cranking on each end. So I pick it up first and then I unravel the waste yarn. And then I go down to the bottom length of my sock tube and I waste yarn around the row that I want to be the row at down near my toe. I skip a row and put another waste yarn in because that's going to be the top of this spare piece. So you see I've got quite a bit of spare. I could make this longer. I think I've decided that next time I'm going to do 150 rows for my sock. And then I count down and I figure out where I'm going to place my sock heel. And what I'm trying to do is come up with my standard recipe so that I know sock tube, measure down X amount, twist, cut off, measure up X amount for my foot, put in my sock heel, and then put my top rib on. I want to be able to, I want to make it as like a pattern, a recipe. I want to come up with my own size recipe so I don't have to fiddle around, you know, one's too long, one's too short. These socks, the foot is just right. They're snug. When they wash, I think they're going to relax a tiny little bit, which will be perfect, but the heel's not going to ride up the back. The leg is a good length. I put on a decent amount of ribbing, but I think that I could, as I say, make my whole sock at another 20 rows and make it 150 rows in total. Yeah, that would be 150 rows. So if you see here, you have to remember that because this is done circularly, it does have a tendency to twist. So you have to mark the sides of your sock tube and then fold them up and make sure you mark at the top the sides also, so that when you are putting your lines in, you're getting right across. So you're going right around for the top and you're going right around for the finished at the bottom. But when you're putting the where the heel's going to be put in, the afterthought heel, you have to fold it properly so that you've got it nice and flat. And so there I've put 2 rows in to be able to pick up my afterthought heel. I originally did all this using my needles. I would just put it straight on needles, but these are really, they're firm, they're harder to manage. It makes it more fiddly, and you could possibly break your needle by fiddling around with that. So I've just done it now with a spare piece of yarn, and I find it much more comfortable to pick up all these little stitches and get them all organized. I did do, I think I mentioned in my last update, that in one of the sock videos I watched, somebody said, do not, when you're cutting your line of stitches to separate for your afterthought heel, to not undo the last stitch on either side to open it up. You'll avoid holes. And I gotta say, I got the most perfect side on my sock heel. I really like that tip. So whoever you are, thank you very much. Sorry, I'm not good about keeping notes about who told me what or where I picked up what, but it's all out there. All these things that I found are in my sock tube playlist. So I'm ready now to separate this and make another sock to match this one. So this is Rowan Fine Art sock yarn, sadly discontinued, gorgeous yarn. And the pink is from Tannis Fiber Arts. I thought the pink and blue was sort of cute together. So see, when I cut this piece off on this, the rest of the sock tube, there technically is enough left for another sock. So there are ways, there's options to do this. Maybe you don't like contrasting heels and toes. So if you don't like contrasting heels and toes, take off about 20 grams of your sock tube, off your sock yarn ball before you send it off to get it wound into a tube. And then you could make a sock and it would all be the main color. Or once you've got this leftover sock, you can make odd socks, one with the body of this sock yarn and one with another body of the other sock yarn. Excuse me. Maybe you can make them match by putting the same yarn on the heels and toes. You know, socks, anything goes these days, so why not? So I'm really enjoying my sock tube adventures. I'm getting there. I'm getting more of a consistency in how I approach it each time, and I'm learning. So if you've got any other tips and tricks, let me know. And I hope if you're doing the sock tube thing that you're enjoying it. One last thing. I have already pulled out from Stash my next Stash Happy project. I'm not going to tell you too much about it today, except that it's in linen. This is Stash and Stash yarn. A few summers ago, Rowan had this pure linen. I loved it. Obviously, not a lot of people did because it got discontinued after two seasons. I have a blue sweater, a green sweater, and sort of a gray neutral sweater, all in linens. And I ended up buying some white because this was the only color when it became apparent that it was discontinued. This was the only color that I could find in my local yarn store to buy. So I bought this white. It's sort of cream. I'm hoping that it suits me. If it's too stark white, I might have to try dyeing it. Does anybody have any experience in dyeing linen? Must be able to be done. It's a natural fiber, right? So that's my little secret project down here, and I hope that you'll see that maybe next episode. So as I said, this was going to be a short one. This always was going to be a short one. A short update on Stash Happy 2020. And that's it for me for now. So take care, everybody. Happy knitting, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.